What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Chaos. My name is Vlad the-tek, and today I am back from my zombie plague encounter. Well, that's not exactly what happened, but I will get into that. But today we're going back to prison. Well, I went back to prison. Not, you guys aren't going with me. That would be a major security risk. There was a lot that happened that I went through the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to be condensing all that in, well, there was a lot of online training and stuff, virtual lessons and stuff like that happened. That I'm just going to cut out because it's incredibly boring and really I've learned better from the practical use of stuff like that. So for the most part, I'm going to be talking mainly about the practical stuff that happened, as well as the update on what happened with my COVID vaccination, because I did release an update about that to let you guys know about how I got sick and stuff like that. But I'm going to give you guys an update on that so you don't feel as worried to get it when the time comes for yourselves. However, if you do have questions, ask a real medical professional, because I am not one of those. So I'm going to start with not last week, but the week before that. We had a lot of virtual lessons. We also had to inspect the mail because we finished those virtual lessons early and we're still able to work. But one very important thing that did happen was, first off, I got handcuffs and pepper spray. That doesn't sound all too important until you remember that I need those for safety. Also, it's really hard to restrain an uncooperative individual without handcuffs. And by the way, you actually do need special training to actually use handcuffs, because if you handcuff somebody in an improper way, you can actually harm them and possibly even kill them. Even though I'm not a certified trainer, I will give you this much information. If you handcuff somebody on the ground, you're supposed to either put them over on their side in the fetal position, or you're supposed to sit them back up or stand them back up. The reason why is because if you have them laying face down on the ground, they could actually suffocate. Because the way you have to handcuff people is, okay, again, this is not instructions, so don't do it. Ever. I'm watching you. Anyways, you handcuff people's hands behind their backs like this, with the rear side of their hands facing each other, and with the keyholes facing up. The problem is, when you have your hands in that way behind your back, it actually causes you to push your chest down a little bit, and when you're on your back, your head's either up or also pushed down. And the problem with that is it restricts your airway, so you're not getting as much air as you think you are. So if you're left like that over time, you can actually suffocate. And of course, I got pepper spray because I was trained on how to use that, and I can use that now. There's also another thing that I got trained on, which happened this week, but we'll get there. The next fun thing that happened that week was a tour of the facility, an actual proper tour. I don't remember if I mentioned this in the last video or not. I don't think I did. But we got a full-on tour of the facility, and boy, there was a lot that I didn't get to see when I actually did my on-the-job training. But I'm really glad I got to see it now, because now I have a better idea of how the entire prison works. I'm mainly going to go over the highlights. There are several different shops with a lot of machinery in it. The biggest place I've worked for was a UPS shipping facility, which is pretty damn big. It's about 3 times the size of that or so. I also got a much better look of our segregation housing units, particularly 7 and 8 house, which are ADSEG. And boy, were people in 7 house very, very vocal that day. But not only did I get to see the inside a lot better, but we actually got to go inside of one of the segregation cells, and it's very depressing. There's graffiti all over the walls, and it's all gang graffiti. And to actually, they also do their own makeshift air conditioning by finding the exhaust and intake cutouts in the cell, and they will take toilet paper and they will get it wet and just stick it to the wall. Basically, it's like paper macheing the holes shut for the vents. Also, after visiting that house, me and my group quickly realized that I am the pretty one of the group. I think that has to do with the fact that I'm a guy with long hair and I had up in a man bun, so I think that might have been the case for it. Moving on from that, which is 8 house, which is different. This is for people with severe mental health problems that are in the facility. This house is a lot quieter on average, but yeah, when things happen, they happen. There's a lot of stuff that I'm glossing over, mainly because it's just there was a lot of things that were said, and there were a couple of things that happened, but it's not gonna make it seem more or less dangerous. I just don't want to embarrass people who were involved in that. So the following week began with some more virtual lessons, but the day after that was where things got really, really interesting because that day was shotgun day. As a quick side note, nobody voice any opinions, any political opinions below about whether you're pro firearms or gun control or whatever. This is just going through what I had to do, being that I am kind of a member of law enforcement. There are situations that may occur where I will be either transferring or guarding the facility against potential intruders or escape attempts. These require me to use a shotgun. One good kind of extreme case, which actually has happened in the past. Let's say I am responsible for transferring an offender to a hospital for treatment, and some of his buddies on the outside show up and smash right into the van and they are shooting at us. I doubt I'm going to be able to talk my way out of that situation. So they find it important to teach everyone in the facility who is in uniform how to use a shotgun. The shotgun we use is a 12-gauge shotgun, and there's a lot of training that I'm required to learn about the shotgun on what the different parts are, a whole lot of safety. In fact, I would say about 90% of that day was learning about safety. Of course, they teach you the basics about how to handle a firearm in like a firearm safety course that you can actually get in public, which, by the way, do not, like I said so many times, do not take this as instructions. This is anything but that. And the most fun part of that week was in order to actually get fully certified, we actually had to go through a practical application where we had to successfully shoot 7 out of 10 targets. And we also had to demonstrate 2 different loading techniques, which were the administrative load and the combat load. Now, the shotgun we use is actually a pump-action shotgun. I guarantee you all know what that is. The administrative load, you need to load 5 loads. Basically, it's a standard load, where basically you feed the rounds in through the bottom and into the loading tube of the shotgun. The combat load, you actually pull again, this is not instructions. Just never own, operate, or use a gun, ever. So, just don't ever use a gun, do not touch a gun, ever. There, now I can't get sued, and this video can never be taken down, ever. Don't do it, YouTube. Or at the very least, if you ever want to own or operate a gun, learn how to use one in a well-taught course. I've grown up around guns since I was, like, 13 or so. I've been around them. I've practiced with several different guns, from a BB gun to a pellet gun to a freaking 22-250 and now a 12-gauge shotgun. I've fired so many guns: handguns, rifles, handguns, long rifles. I've been around them long enough to know how to use them safely. Never had a gun accidentally go off. I never injured anyone. I've never even killed anything. I haven't even killed a squirrel with a gun. If I'm not firing a gun, the safety is on, it's not loaded, and my finger's never in that trigger guard until I'm ready to fire. There's a lot of discipline you need to know before using a gun, so I swear to God, if you try to operate a gun without going to a course to tell you how to safely use the gun you are firing, I swear to God. Anyways, the combat load is where you actually have the action of the shotgun open, which is the little bolty sliding bit inside that opens and closes, where the casing actually ejects from the shotgun after you fire. And you basically just throw a round into the chamber that way and actually just push it forward where it's ready to fire. You really only want to do this if you have to, because it is super dangerous. And in other words, don't ever do it. Ever. Just don't. Like I said before, don't ever own a gun, and you should be fine. I can say that without getting in trouble, right, YouTube? And the reason why they teach you this technique is because when you're under fire, or if your gun is unloaded and you're transferring it, it's way faster to do a combat load and discharge a load into a possible threat than it is to sit there and try to administratively load 5 rounds. It takes a grand total of 1 or 2 seconds to load and fire using a combat load versus an administrative load. But for the most part, you probably will never have to use it in your DOC career. Not saying that it will never happen, but most likely you won't have to do it. Again, I can't stress this enough. Do not take anything I say as instructions. This is not that. You can't sue me now. Like I said, I recommend just never owning a gun. There. Now I can't get sued. It's not my real thoughts, but that's my recommendation. This part of the video couldn't be any more vague, so we actually get to the range, and my turn to shoot comes. After so long. And I'm nervous because the last time I fired a shotgun was 2 or 3 years ago. It was not a pump action shotgun, but that's not what really made the difference. But first off, it was a 20 gauge shotgun versus a 12 gauge shotgun. I have never fired a 12 gauge. In fact, the last time I shot a shotgun, that was actually the first time I shot a 20 gauge. And for the longest time, that was the highest gauge round I've shot, was the 20 gauge. On top of that, the sights on that 20 gauge were different from the 12 gauge we were learning to use in the classroom. And yes, we were learning how to aim shotguns in the classroom. Again, there were no rounds actually being loaded into the gun aside from dummy rounds. These dummy rounds are they look like regular rounds, but the difference is there are no pellets and there's no gunpowder and no primer. It is very obvious that they're dummy rounds. In the classroom, we were also learning how to inspect the chamber, both in the action and actually in the loading tube. Because before you transfer it, you have to be able to demonstrate that the chamber is completely clear before and during handing off the gun. But anyways, the sights I'm used to are just your standard, for lack of a better terminology, iron sights. If you ever play Call of Duty, you'll be kind of, well, if you played any first-person shooter game, you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. But the sight, there's a sight on the end of the barrel that you need to line up with a sight on top of the action. The front sight is just a single dot, and there's 2 dots in the back that you need to center it on, and they need to be perfectly aligned. But on iron sights, you don't really have dots, you just have 2 pieces of metal, and there's little bumps that you line up. Still not instructions. But the guns we were using did not have that. Instead, it had the sight in the front that you line up with an actual just flat cutout piece on the rear of the gun instead of having the 2 nubs. Now I was incredibly concerned because now I'm learning how to use a completely different aiming method. On top of the fact that we only have 10 targets to shoot at. Which sounds like, it's 10 targets with a shotgun. That should be easy. Well, it's a 12 gauge with a short spread. On top of that, 10 targets is a very small sample size. Let's say there were 20 targets that I had to shoot at. If I miss 1 target, that only drops my accuracy by 5%, which is a 95% success rate. Versus 10 targets, where I miss 1 target, now I'm at 90%. You see the difference? Whereas to maintain my 70% accuracy, I would have to miss 6 targets with a total 20 targets to aim at. So I would have to hit, why does my math suck today? 14 targets versus me only being able to miss 3 targets out of 10. So I would have to get 7 targets out of 10. You see the difference? The bigger the sample size having a bigger sample size is actually easier than having smaller sample size. So I'm nervous because I've never fired a 12 gauge. I can't remember if I've ever fired double-aught buck, which is the rounds that we were using. I've never used these sights, and I have a very small sample size, and I'm in front of my other classmates who are watching me, and they're going to see whether or not I pass or fail. Also, the other thing that I'm being graded on is posture. Still not instructions. If you get your posture wrong, you're either going to miss your shots, or you're going to be blown backwards because 12 gauge. Also, you may end up hurting yourself because if you don't have the rifle seated right, it could actually pop up and smack you in the cheek, or it could actually skip on you, and you could actually miss your shots because if you're too far out on your arm, it'll actually cause it to skip left and right, like this. Again, never own a gun, or just never own a gun. Guns are not designed to be safe. So I get up, I have earplugs in, they're giving me my instructions. I fire my shots, and boy was that jarring. If you've never fired a gun in your life, though, especially a very powerful gun, you're kind of nervous. But after shooting guns for a good portion of my life, I know for a fact that once I fire off that first round, and I get a feel for exactly how this gun is going to behave, then I'm fine because I now know how to handle this gun while firing it. So I literally, wow, my arm's high. Sorry, it's just how I sit in this chair. So I literally am seated. I fire off I'm like nervous. I go through the motions, have my finger outside the trigger guard, take a deep breath, turn off the safety, load up a round, and squeeze the trigger while holding my breath. That first shot goes off, and immediately it's just muscle memory from there on out. I get to the end of my firing. I demonstrate that the chamber and loading barrel are clear. I hand it off. The instructor says that he has the weapon, takes it from me. In that moment, he says something that made my heart skip a beat a little bit. He looks me dead in the eyes and says, your posture was off. You missed all your targets. You're going to have to repeat this test. My heart sank a little bit, and I was just ready to accept it because, I get another shot. I get to talk to an instructor, review exactly where I went wrong and how I can improve, and I just get to go again. I will probably get it on the next time. And he says, "I'm just joking, you're certified." I'm like, "You motherfucker." So I grab my shotgun certification card, I put it in my DOC wallet, and I actually talked to that same instructor while he was smoking a cigarette, because he felt the need to come up to me and apologize for joking with me, because autistic, I don't usually show joking on my face. He says, "Yeah, I didn't mean to startle you back there, but not only was your pass-through the smoothest out of all of them, but you also made all of your shots. You hit all 10 targets." I'm like, yes! You guys don't understand. I have to be certified in using a shotgun to actually keep this job, because there may be circumstances where I'm put on a stand where I need to use a shotgun, or at least have one around me. And they're not the only guns that are carried out of the facility. There's also a Glock that I can get certified on, and there's also an AR. So there's a lot of safety stuff that needs to be learned to use those guns. I'm not certified on the other firearms there, but I am certified on the shotgun now. And then, of course, I had defensive tactics training, which was fun. I'm not going to go through a whole lot of that because, again, I'm not an instructor. But for some reason, I don't know why, but there's only one move that you can actually throw people on. But for some reason, I have a tendency to throw people whenever I'm in defensive tactics. I don't get what it is. I threw my instructor, too, which was fun. Apparently, I'm just a person who likes to throw people when I'm fighting. And I also love to do wrist locks and stuff, which is super fun. And of course, that same day, the first day of DT, is when I got my second COVID vaccination. And the night following that, at roughly 1 in the morning, so technically it's the next day, I spiked a fever. I was aching. I had a massive headache. And unfortunately, I just couldn't go in, which unfortunately means I didn't graduate because I missed 2 of the 3 defensive tactics training days. So unfortunately, I have to repeat those next month and get certified then. But the fortunate side effect to that is I'm still working in the mornings. I'm still working Mondays through Fridays. And my days off are still Saturday and Sunday, so I can keep this schedule. Also, there might be some days where I might not have a video up. So warning beforehand, and that is primarily because I am currently, thanks to stimulus checks, tax returns, and just the perks of having a job and also being able to get paid, I've actually got the parts to start upgrading basically just rebuilding my computer. So I'm actually switching systems. I am also reusing old parts from my current system because they still work. So yeah, there might just be days where you might not have a video, and I'm sorry about that. But if it makes up for it, I will actually be posting a video about performance increases, because that stuff's interesting to me and I just want to nerd out about it somewhere. So if you guys want to have a hand in helping rebuild this PC, you can actually support the channel through the links in the description below. I have 2 different ways you can support me, either through one-time donations via Coffee or through monthly recurring donations through Patreon. However, your subscriptions, likes, comments, all of those are great ways of supporting the channel, letting me know that I am valued and that people are watching me because I am desperate for human contact. Oh yeah, and before my ADHD takes over a little bit too much, don't let me getting sick off of the COVID vaccine deter you from getting it yourself. I literally recovered in 2 days. So, yeah, you feel sick after the second one. You may feel sick. Not everyone gets that reaction. In fact, only one other person that got the vaccine at the same time I did actually got sick off of it, that I know of. It goes away in literally 2 days because your body's literally just creating a fever and all these symptoms to try to fight off the administered infection is essentially what it is. But provided you don't spike a fever of like 103 or something like that, you're going to make it through. Just stay hydrated. In fact, the facility that I work in actually gave us administrative leave just in case that happens. So I had 2 days to recover, and that's literally all I needed. So yeah, don't let that deter you. And anyways, like I said before, support the channel through the links in the description below, or by liking, commenting, subscribing, adding this video to your favorites, sharing it on Facebook and the TikToks, or wherever it can be shared. Tie your friends down to a chair and force them to watch it all the way through in slow motion for more watch time. I also have a TikTok channel, although I need to make time to start posting that to that. I also have an Instagram, again, need to make more time. I guess when I start upgrading this PC, I should actually start giving updates on that right now because I've already done a lot of work for this new PC, just getting the case set up. You'll see what I mean when I post pictures and stuff like that. Also, don't forget to go over to our Discord server, which is very, very active now. I will meet you guys over there. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, feel free to show me some love down below by hitting the like button, and don't forget to check out the annotations for more videos. And I will see you in the next video.